Good evening, and welcome to the historic Wightman Chapel here on the campus of Scarritt Bennett Center for Transforming Dream into Legacy, a conversation with Dr. Bernice A. King. I am Reverend Kelly X, Director of Racial Justice Ministries here at Scarritt Bennett Center. And we are so honored to have you here for us this evening. We're excited that you weather the storms in order for us to gather on this day and to celebrate all that is happening here at Scarritt Bennett. This event is a part of our year-long celebration of Scarritt being here in Nashville for 100 years. Scarritt College actually started in Kansas City, Kansas, and moved here in, I did 100 years, forgive me, in 1924. And we are just so excited about the legacy that Belle Bennett, who was the idea grabber to have Christian education for women at a time when women were not allowed to be ordained into ministry. And so from her legacy of that dream, we have created a legacy that continues to move forward, not just from just the college to the graduate school and now here at Scarritt Bennett. And so we are so also excited that this celebrates the 67th anniversary of Dr. King's father, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., delivering a speech here in Wightman Chapel. On April 25th, 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke in Wightman Chapel to the Conference on Christian Faith and Human Relations, hosted by Scarritt College and Vanderbilt Divinity School, and co-sponsored by the Tennessee Council of Churches and the Fellowship of Christian Churchmen. Dr. King spoke the last day of the conference and addressed some 350 church leaders, the day after receiving the Social Justice Award from the Religious and Labor Foundation in New York. In his address, entitled "The Role of the Church in Facing the Nation's Chief Moral Dilemma," Dr. King defined the nation's dilemma as a failure to make our nation a brotherhood. Racial segregation is a blatant denial of the unity which we have in Christ. The task of conquering segregation is an escapable must, confronting the Christian churches. The churches are called upon to recognize the urgent necessity of taking a forthright stance on this critical issue. Now, 67 years later, we are here with his daughter, Dr. Bernice A. King, to discuss transforming dream into legacy. And I am so excited to hear her insights and her wisdom on justice and what life looks like going forward into this new dawning of time. But before this, I want to thank our guests that are here, that we have Reverend Dr. Ricardo Guffrey of the Fitz Belmont Social Justice Collaborative, who has been helpful in making this night happen as well. So thankful for Dr. Lewis Baldwin and all the work that he has done on studying Dr. King throughout his life, being present with us as well. And just thankful for all of you all as well for being present with us on this day. But before we go any further, I would like to take this time for us to be blessed by an amazing voice, with an amazing person with an amazing voice, an amazing gift. Please join me in welcoming countertenor Patrick Daly.
Good evening. It is such a thrill and honor to be here this evening. And before I get to singing, I always like to sort of set up the room and set the context for what's going to be happening. In sacred spaces, folks gathered throughout history and throughout time to, of course, commune with the Spirit, but also to do important work of moving humanity and society forward. They sang songs, and in particular for African ancestors, they sang songs that had many codes and languages and ideas sort of swirling around that became and are still transformative, still, as the old hymn says, speak from eternity. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go on a little journey. This is called the Sankofa medley. And this is going to go on a little journey where we're going to start and we're going to go, we're going to sing some songs, and there's going to come a point where you all will be asked to join along. Because this work is not an individual work, it is a collective work. And when we raise our voices, we are able to harness that spirit. I do this, of course, in honor of the King family and the King legacy, thinking about Dr. King and how important he is, but also many who labored beside him. His wife, of course, Mrs. Scarritt King, who was a singer. And I think of Bayard Rustin, who also was a singer. And so I offer this to you all, to the community, and to our ancestors. May we all be blessed. Amen.
No. we can sing it together. I'm gonna let it shine. Put your hands on it if you feel it. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, you know I'm gonna let it shine. Hallelujah. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it
Ain't God all right on today? So our convener for today, as we prepare to have this amazing conversation, I would like to take this time to first introduce the convener of the conversation today, Reverend Sondrea L. Tolbert, JD, MD, MDiv, the Executive Director of Scarritt Bennett Center, or as I like to call her, my ED. Reverend Tolbert is an adjunct professor of business law, an author, and first woman ordained and appointed as assistant pastor of the historic Fairfield Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend Sondrea is the immediate past director of the National Consortium of Black Women in Ministry, Nashville chapter, where she instituted initiatives involving breast cancer awareness, domestic violence, and HIV/AIDS. She has received numerous awards for her work, including proclamations from the state of Tennessee, the mayor of Nashville, including the Visionary Award from Fashioned in His Image, and the 2018 National Sojourner's Truth Award for the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club, Central Alabama, and the Athena 2021 nominee. Reverend Sondrea is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and LeGems, Nashville chapter. Reverend Tolbert is a graduate of Fisk University. I'm giving y'all Fisk University. I know Fisk is here. Okay. Don't say I never gave y'all nothing. Come on, Fisk. Yes. North Carolina Central University School of Law, and Payne Theological Seminary. She loves reading, spending time with her family, and cuddling with Amos, her multi-poo. And our guest of honor today, Dr. Bernice A. King, is a global thought leader, strategist, solutionist, orator, peace advocate, and CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, the King Center, which was founded by her mother as the official living memorial to the life, work, and legacy of her father. In this position, Bernice continues to advocate her parents' legacy for nonviolent social change through advocacy, policy, research, as well as education and training through the Kingian philosophy of nonviolence, which she rebranded Nonviolence 365. Through her work at the King Center, she educates youth and adults around the world about the nonviolent principles and strategies modeled by her parents. Under her leadership, the King Center has implemented numerous initiatives over 500,000 people around the world, including the beloved Community Leadership Academy students with King, NV 365 education training, and the beloved Community Talks, a courageous conversation platform about the difficult racial and social justice issues impacting our world. Dr. King led the development of the NV365 certificate program for trainers, which provides individuals with opportunities to teach NV365 curriculum on behalf of the King Center. She is an instructor for the program and a trainer. Dr. King received her Juris Doctorate and Master's of Divinity degrees from Emory University and a bachelor's degree in psychology from Spelman College. Come on, Spelman. I see Spelman in the house. From 1990 to 1992, she served as a law clerk for Judge Glenda Hatchett, the Chief Justice of Fulton County Juvenile Detention Court. She served for 7 years as an assistant pastor at Greater Rising Star Baptist Church in Atlanta, where she organized the development of several new ministries. In 2007, she established the Be a King Scholarship in honor of her mother at Spelman College. Dr. King spearheaded the 2013 Let Freedom Ring event, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and her father's I Have a Dream speech. The global event included President Barack Obama, President Bill Clinton, President Jimmy Carter, members of Congress, as well as many other international leaders, dignitaries, and entertainers. In March 2018, Dr. King was fortunate to have a private audience of His Holiness, Pope Francis, in 2020 with influential and encouraging Atlanta business leaders to actively support major racial equity and social justice issues, including the successful passage of the Georgia hate crime and legislation. Dr. King has received numerous awards and recognitions. She is recipient of the 2 Phoenix Awards. She received her first in 2020 from the Congress of Black Caucus Foundation, where the Phoenix Award recognized individuals who have made significant contributions to society and is the highest award. The second Phoenix Award was received in 2023 from the City of Atlanta, which recognizes outstanding achievements and service to state, city, nation, and the world. It is the highest award an individual or group can receive from the mayor of the City of Atlanta. In addition to these awards, in 2021, she received Atlanta Business Chronicle's Lifetime Achievement Award for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She received an honorary Doctorate of Divinity from Wesleyan College and Clinton College, an honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters from Spelman College, and an honorary Doctorate of Law from Grimsby College. As noted author, she has to her credit Hard Questions, Heart Answers, as well as a children's book entitled It Starts With Me, which is a part of the King Center's Be Love movement. She is a member of the State Bar of Georgia, admitted since 1993, a registered mediator through the Georgia Office of Dispute Reconciliation, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the International Women, there you go, the International Women's Forum, the National Council of Negro Women, and the 50th anniversary class of Leadership Atlanta 2020. A board member of the King Center and the National Black Bank Foundation. Dr. King is also advisory council chair for Ready Life, a financial service company that provides a novel path to home ownership without a credit score. Additionally, she serves as Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategies and Alliance for Redemption Holdings, an investment company acquiring profitable banks to build a tech-enabled minority-focused institutions. Dr. King is an innovative, inspirational, transformational leader. She is devoted to advancing the legacy of her parents and to ensuring the new generations of influencers are introduced into their teachings. The King Center, as well as the work of creating the beloved community with Nonviolent 365 as the pathway. Please join me in introducing Reverend Sondrea Tolbert and Dr. Bernice A. King.
Commemorating, if you will, I believe Reverend Kelly stated it earlier, but just to reiterate, in case you missed it, we are kicking off celebrating 100 years of Scarritt making an impact in Nashville. And with that, as a part of that, her father, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, spoke here in April 25th, 1957. And we thought the most appropriate way to kick off this year-long celebration was to have a conversation, if you will, with Dr. King. And so we are so grateful that she was gracious and kind enough to brave the weather to come be with us today. So thank you again, Dr. King, for braving the weather with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, this evening is also in partnership, if you will, with Fisk. Fisk. How many times can we say Fisk tonight? With Fisk Belmont Social Justice Collaborative. When we talked about last year having this type of conversation, Dr. Ricardo Guthrie and Dr. Bernard Turner were like, oh, we want to be a part of that. And we said, most certainly, we want students to be a part of that. So tonight you'll hear a couple of their questions as well as a couple of our questions that we wanted to delve into, making sure that we just had a conversation, if you will, this afternoon. And so one of our first questions, Dr. King, was that when your father spoke here some 67 years ago. Ooh.
I was -6.
You were -6. Some 67 years ago, when he couldn't, as the story goes, they were supposed to actually speak over at Vanderbilt, if you will, but the conference wanted to serve communion in a mixed race setting. And so therefore, they couldn't do that over there and had to come over here to do that. And so by addressing that, and so they were addressing in the Conference of Christian Faith and Human Relations, Dr. King talked about the responsibility of the church to confront what he called the chief moral dilemma, if you will, that we know now in this nation and as a church. This tragic dilemma that we know confronts not only the nation and the church, but also is a tremendous challenge. And so we wanted to talk about, what is this racial segregation that he talked about? A racial segregation is a blatant denial of the unity that we have in Christ. If we are Christians, if we believe in God, if we say that we are faith-based, then how can we treat one another differently? And so with that, his word said that segregation is a tragic evil which is utterly un-Christian. So thanks to his works and other religious leaders on segregation, that segregation is not necessarily the law of the land. Yet the church remains separated by race, because the most segregated hour, and even he said it in 1957, is during the church hour on Sunday morning. Can you speak to about the role that faith plays or has to play in the need in transforming a nation?
That's a big question. And I guess I want to answer it by first lifting the scripture that faith is the substance of things, hope for the evidence of things not seen. So when you talk about faith, you're talking about substance, you're talking about evidence, which to me translates into results. When you look at our society today, if we're going to get results that transform the way we relate to each other, that transform our economic and social systems, then we're going to have people who have a vision regarding that transformation, believe that it can happen, and then put action behind it. That means our churches have to move beyond religious practices and begin to become more socially active with the notion that we believe that we can achieve this vision. The very thing that drove my father and them in the movement was their faith. They believed, just like our ancestors, they believed that one day there would be another state of existence and living for them out of slavery. My father and them believed that regardless of what they were faced with, that they had the strength, the power, the resolve, and a God who was a co-worker with them to overcome. That's why they could sing, "We shall overcome," because they literally believe that no matter what obstacles we face, we already see an outcome. And that's why they could get up every day and face those difficulties and that hatred. And I'm not sure if people believe that anymore. I think some people are cynical. Some people have given up hope because it's gotten very dark, it's gotten very evil. And some people feel like, you know, how are we going to get through this? Where's the voice to help us through it? But I'm very hopeful and full of faith in that regard. And maybe it's because I know what we came through. You know, if we would just, the most powerful word in the Bible, to me, is the word remember.
Yes, yes.
God often brought that to the attention to the children of Israel. Remember. If we could just constantly remember that there were generations before us who not only had the faith, but they put actions with the faith, because we know faith without works is dead. They put action with the faith, facing their very difficult, dark situations, and they overcame. Now, does it mean that there were not some losses? Of course. But we are where we are today because there was generations before us who laid that foundation. Now, I am a part of them. So if I'm a part of them, if my DNA is connected to them, I too have that capacity. And that's what gives me the faith. That's what should give all of us the faith and the resolve to address these difficult issues. So, yes.
So, but how do we, and I'm probably, this is a follow-up to that, if you will, how do we translate that in a society that seems that we are hopeless? That seems that we are hopeless. That church attendance, if you will, is down. And how we practice or exercise our faith seems to be different than from of old, because we are used to it, and we're post-resurrection, if you will, and we just came through, you know, because he lives, I can face tomorrow.
Right.
And right now, folks are looking at, I don't even know if he lived or if he died or if he's coming back again. And now, I don't even know if I have hope to tomorrow based upon the gun violence that is going on in our communities. The backsliding of all of the legislation that your father, your mother, and all of those in the movement fought for. It seems as if we're sliding back from that as opposed to moving forward. How do we instill in a generation that seems hopeless, hope?
How do we,
How do we instill hope in a hopeless, seemingly hopeless generation?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah.
And I'm being honest
Yeah.
about that. The only way I know is through example. I think people draw strength from other people. And those of us who have faith, who do believe, and know that this is, and I know this is hard for people here, this is a temporary situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
It's temporary because there are enough people, a critical mass of people, who have not given up the fight of justice, freedom, and equality. And as long as you have that critical mass, there will be a moment in time where a kairos moment will happen. That's what happened in the movement. They didn't, I mean, when Claudette sat on the bus, she didn't know what was going to happen after it, Claudette Colvin. When Mrs. Parks sat on the bus, she did not know what was going to happen. But all of the things lined up at that moment. And so those of us who have that kind of strength, faith, have to continue to not allow ourselves to buy into the myth that we're in a hopeless situation, because we are not in a hopeless situation. We may need to figure out how to humble ourselves, because that's what, when, you know, we love to preach that text in the scripture. If my people who are called by my name, and we skip, we go pray and seek my face, and then he'll heal the land. We miss humble themselves, which is very critical. The humility before God, recognizing that we do need his mind in this situation, as intelligent as we are. My father was a very humble person, and he sought the mind of God and the strategy of God to break through, and that seems to be lacking today. And so what's going to give us hope is when enough of us can humble ourselves from our positions of popularity and, you know, all of the fame that's in the culture today, and really connect and create strategy for change. What I don't see today is the strategy for change.
That's what
I see a lot of organizing, I see a lot of mobilizing, but I don't see the strategy for change. And I also don't see, golly, I don't see key leaders joining forces together in spite of their differences. There's a lot of ego that is in the way. And that ego is within generation and intergenerational. And that, to me, is costing us a great deal during this temporary situation. I feel we got in this temporary situation for a number of reasons. One, I think we did get too far from the church. And sometimes God allows things to happen to bring us back. I mean, we saw that over and over in the scriptures. I think we got, those of us in the black community, I think we got overly excited about a black person being in the White House. And we got laxed because we thought we had arrived to a certain place. And then there were those who are our allies who believed the myth that we had entered into a post-racial society.
Right.
So I think all of that got in the way. And then I think we have not done a good job in our generation of staying connected to the next generation. And so all these things have kind of come into play right now, and people are very frustrated, and instead of people corralling and connecting and coordinating, collaborating, everybody's kind of out there in their own little space. And we can't deal with these overwhelming challenges and issues that we have together in these silos. We don't have enough strength to do that. We don't have enough power to do that.
You mentioned that your father had an ingredient called humbleness, and he was a chosen leader. And so, what do you feel is missing today from the type of typology or if you will, characteristics for a really? We in your bio we talked about being a transformative leader. Really, a transformative servant leader. What are we missing as an ingredient for
As
someone?
opposed, in addition to humility.
In addition to humility.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
My father was very self-aware. In fact, if you read him, he had an ability to critique himself. While he was looking outwardly, he also looked in the mirror. He knew where his strengths lie and where the strengths of those that work with him lie. I think the power of his leadership was in understanding who was amongst him and being honest about that. So honesty is missing as well because we live in a very fame and popular culture, and everybody has this drum major instinct that my father talked about. They want to be first, they want to be recognized, they want to be noticed, they want to be out front, they want to get the credit. And Daddy was not self-centered that way. He was a servant leader. And so it wasn't about him. And too often it's about those that are in those leadership positions. So I think that's some of it. But that drum major instinct, and I would encourage everybody to read that or listen to it because it's very powerful. And I think it's one of our challenges today in leadership, and is hindering some of our progress.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. That we are in a instant society of the posting picture and saying that we are there and we're making a difference. And so instead of actually making a difference or making the change, you are the product of awesome parents. Awesome. I mean, really just awesome. Yes, we applaud and are and taught Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, but he had beside him one awesome woman.
Yes, he did.
A visionary, a wife, a mother, an activist in her own right. She was classically trained as an opera singer. She was active in the civil rights movement. And often she was off doing the speaking herself and encouraged by your father to go off and speak and empowered, if you will. So, and she's, continued that legacy, his legacy, just 3 months after his assassination. So how, and I guess my question now is how, in watching your mother, how in watching Miss Coretta, how she moved and how she moved about and how she was active, how did that fulfill your conviction and prepare you for now?
Well, several different ways. Obviously, having someone who didn't just talk about things but lived them was very important. She was my greatest example for what it means to be a human being first and a leader second. She was a powerhouse. A person who can draw every living president to their homegoing, and they are an ordinary citizen. It's a very powerful person. She showed me the power of transcending political parties. And so this day, I have friends, colleagues, that are in all political parties, independent as well. I'm not afraid of that because my mother set the example. She got criticized when she ended up at the Republican convention. But she understood that in order to move things forward, causes forward, she understood that you had to connect with people who were in critical decision-making positions. And today it's like, if you find yourself amongst those people, you're canceled. And so today you have to be very, careful how you maneuver and do it. But nonetheless, for me, I do it because I know that at the end of the day, somebody has to have those connections. Because if you tie yourself to one side, then when things switch, you're going to find yourself not being able to make certain advances, because the tables have turned. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, she taught me how to handle very emotionally challenging situations and not lose my head. My mother was always graceful under pressure, under difficult situations, under loss and grief. I just lost my brother in January, which was a tremendous loss for our family. I'm still deeply grieving. But I always remember how my mother conducted herself through those different seasons of loss and recognized that I still, while I grieve, I don't deny myself that, but I also am a leader. So I still have to move forward. I still have to make decisions. And then the other thing, one of the greatest lessons she taught me tied to that, I was driving down one of the highways in Atlanta, and I was probably in my early 30s, and I was very upset about something, and talking with her about it, and cell phones have been around a long time. I just thought about that. She stopped me in the middle of my sentence, and she said, "Baby, never make a decision in your anger." That impressed upon me so powerfully that today it has saved me in so many different situations. She was saying to me, "Bernice, feel what you feel, go through whatever that emotion is. It may not be anger, it could be something else. But don't let it be the thing that drives you in your decision making. Settle yourself and then begin to think through this. Be very thoughtful. You may end up in the same place, but be very thoughtful." So that's another thing as well. She was I could say a lot of things about my mother. She knew how to build coalitions too. I'm still struggling in that regard. But she was a great coalition builder. This was a woman who brought together 700 plus organizations for the 25th anniversary of the March on Washington to address or to look at passing legislation for the King holiday, which ultimately did pass. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that I learned from her. Also, how to love your enemies. I remember so often she would say, "I don't hold grudges," and people say that, people say a lot of stuff. But my mother was very sincere in that. I saw how people treated her, and I saw how she continued to extend herself in love with those individuals. And so it taught me a great deal, to know how to love those who hate me or who try to undermine me or do all kind of evil antics related to me. I still love them. I still extend my heart to them. I forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They do, but they don't. And so I leave them in the hands of the Almighty. And, He knows exactly what to do. And I don't leave him in the sense that, God, get him. I leave him in the sense that, God is sovereign. He knows more than I know about everything, not just my situation, about his master plan.
Yes.
And I don't know what his master plan is as it relates to that individual.
Right.
So I just leave it in the hands of God. So these are the things that I grew up with, you know, as a leader, because if you get, as a leader, you have to be able to regulate your emotions. You got to be able to manage all of that. You can't lead if you're an emotional wreck. You know, you have to settle yourself. So she was a great example of how to do that.
One of the students sent a question that I'm going to ask right after when you saying what she left you. Helen E. James, a fifth social justice master student, 2025, wrote her question for you, Dr. King, was, would you ever change your career and not seek to follow your father's or your mother's legacy? Did you ever consider?
You said, did I ever consider?
Did you ever consider? They said, would you?
Oh, I never would now. Before I would have, but no, because I know how critical my parents' legacy is to this world. You know, we have to remember, my father was not 90.
Right.
He was 39, and he was in the midst of a campaign, an economic campaign. And so his life was taken from him.
Right.
You know, there was a lot unfinished work. And I feel called to that work. I feel called especially to helping people understand how he was successful in doing the work. Because I think this nation has yet to fully grasp the power of nonviolence to create social change. And so I wouldn't trade it for the world. In fact, at the 50th anniversary of his assassination, I said to a few reporters that if I had to do this all over again, you know, my life, et cetera, would I change anything? And I said, no. Even though I lost, or my father was taken from me when I was 5 years old, I can't imagine a world without Martin Luther King Jr. and the way in which he conducted his life. And so if I had to go through it all over again, I would still do that.
Yes.
Because I can, you know, I can figure out how to handle how I feel about all that personally. It's more important to me that what he gave to this world, he was able to give. And so, you know, I think his great sacrifice was important. And so what I may have personally lost, we all gained as a world and continue to gain.
And we thank you for your continuing the work. And just being here even after the losses that you have experienced just within the last month. And thought it not robbery to come this way. And so I'm so immensely grateful. One of the other questions from the student, I believe Morgan Allen, Fisk Social Justice Master's degree candidate from 2024. Her question was, what lesson would you share with the future movement leaders? What lessons or lesson would you share with future movement leaders?
You know, at the beginning of this year, our theme was shifting the cultural climate through the study and practice of Kingian nonviolence. In '64, at the Nobel Peace Prize, when my father received the Nobel Peace Prize, he gave a lecture at the university there. And he said essentially that I suggest that the philosophy and strategy of nonviolence immediately become a subject of study and serious experimentation in every field of human conflict, by no means excluding conflict between nations. I still believe every generation, and especially the younger generation, should study Kingian nonviolence. Erica Chenoweth, who's an educator, has done research around nonviolent campaigns and violent uprisings. She studied from the beginning of the 20th century all the way up to 2019. And her data showed that nonviolent campaigns are more successful. Because today, people are still saying nonviolence doesn't work and we need a little admixture, you know, a little sprinkling of violence with the nonviolence. But even that is not as successful because at the end of the day, nonviolent campaigns, one, have the capacity to draw larger amounts of adherents. Nobody wants to join a violent revolution for the most part, not the masses at least. So nonviolence can attract more allies. Nonviolence has the capacity to cause those who are the adversaries and opponents, those who support those in those positions of power, to defect from the camp because of its ability to appeal to consciousness, or the fact, and it's been shown around the nation, that those people who support some of the repressive regimes have loved ones who might be out there amongst those who are protesting and standing up. So I think this generation owes it to themselves to study Kingian nonviolence, and it helps us with strategy. You know, just showing up is not enough. It's important. It has helped to keep everything, you know, before the conscience of America, but in terms of transformation and change, now we need to have strategy, we need to have plan, we need to have long-term engagement because change does not happen overnight. And even if we're trying to change systems and structures, at the end of the day, we still have to transform culture and we have to transform mindsets so that we can build that beloved community. Otherwise, we end up repeating, you know, these violent situations.
That, and they're throwing up, like, telling me to stop, but I'm like, no. That's exactly, I think that's exactly where we are, in that nonviolence, we've seen the violent way, and we've seen how it has affected us. And so now I believe that the voice of liberation really bears the attention of us making an effort to really have a strategic mindset, because that's what the movement did. The movement just wasn't about going out and protesting. There was always a strategy behind the protest. There was always an end to the mean. There was always still another, not only the protest, but also working for the legislation, always working for other things, not just the protest moment.
But also there were 6 principles that grounded the movement. So, you know, that helped you to stay disciplined, that help you to understand we're not trying to destroy people, we're trying to transform systems, we're trying to defeat injustice, that helps you to understand the power of sacrificing for a greater cause. I mean, there's a whole discipline to this process, there's a whole mindset to this process. And so that's why at the center, we define it as a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. And for us, nonviolence goes beyond just social justice. It helps you in your workplace. It helps you in your personal relationships. Many people have testified how it has saved their marriages. So Daddy taught it as a whole lifestyle. So, you know, I'm just hoping that we will all begin to really study it and internalize it so that we can create a different outcome in our society.
And so I believe that's what you mean by be loved, because that was going to be one of my questions, was one around how do we embody the whole beloved community with a be loved mindset.
Yeah, that's a process. It's really a process, but that's why the study and the practice and the experimentation with this is so important. I want to close with something I think is important because in this time, we've got to find a way to transcend the polarization, because it seems like we're further dividing that. We're losing our sense of humanity and sense of being civil. We're becoming close to being an uncivil society. And unfortunately, if we're not careful, those of us who believe we are civil people will become uncivil. And that's what nonviolence does. It keeps you grounded so you don't let people pull you to their level. But there are some of us who are called to go into certain territories, to connect with certain kinds of people. So while we're working on legislative change, we also have to work on heart change. And Daddy did that through his work. And it has to be ongoing because at the end of the day, I don't care what you think, we're not gonna get rid of just hate by trying to get rid of people. If I get rid of them, then you're gonna be doing that forever. You're gonna exhaust yourself because, they keep multiplying, People are still being raised, And so how do we cross over into those territories and connect with people who may not think like us and have these ideologies that do lead to very evil things? And there's some people that are doing that as we speak. So I don't know if anybody here in this audience has that calling on their life. I know I do, because I'm not afraid of connecting with people like that. And I know that I'm not trying to go in and tell them they're wrong. I'm trying to go in and do what the Holy Spirit told me years ago, which is said, my job is to connect. His job is to convert. So as I go in, and that's what my father was able to do. He was able to go in with that love-centered way and posture and be able to cause conviction. Now, some will never change, and that's fine, but you have done your part, and who knows? I mean, so many people, we saw what happened to George Wallace. Now, some people argue it's because he got shot, and that may be the case, but there were a lot of factors that went into his transformation. A man who was very adamant about segregation, but yet he transformed. And so we can't just give up on people and try to throw them away, because that just emboldens, they left to other people and then emboldens them even more. So I wanted to say that because we're in that year.
Yes.
Yes, we're in that year. And I see where things are headed. So you all, if you have the discipline and the patience and the calling, please do the work in that regard, because we need it desperately.
Last question. True transformation of a dream into a long-lasting legacy requires passing the baton to the next generation. What characteristics should young people cultivate to be in line with the Kingan legacy?
Well, we spoke about one, humility. Which is important. Congruency. Dr. King was congruent. He didn't just talk about nonviolence, he believed it, he lived it. He wasn't one way in public and another way in private. So being congruent is very important. I talked about self-awareness, discipline. Being able to regulate your thinking, your emotions, and regulate your behavior. The courage. Yes. A lot of courage is required. I mean, there's so many other things. Thoughtfulness, being reflective. I don't know if we're cultivating that in this generation. And one of the most important ones is cultivating an ability to be a critical thinker, to go beyond the surface, to ask those questions. Don't just accept something at face value. Go past that. Ask the next why. So those are some. I mean, there's so many others, but those are some of the important ones, I think, and obviously love being at the center of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. King, for having this critical conversation with us on today that we definitely are called and are chosen, really, to really transform, keep transforming the dream, to keep transforming the dream. And thank you for the charge to keep doing that with an area of love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. And I think there is some, I think we will have closing remarks. Oh, I'm sorry. Ready to come down? Okay. You want to come down?
I'm gonna take this bottle with me.
You want the glass?
Nah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Place 67 years later of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaking right here in Wightman Chapel. I am Janine Davis, Director of Development, Sales, and Marketing here at Scarritt Bennett Center, and it is an honor to host you all tonight for this historic event. So I am here to do what we call in the development world an ask. But I don't want to just ask, I want to tell. I want to tell a story about a shy 15-year-old boy who keeps to himself and participated in our Saboni program, which is a program for 14 to 24-year-olds. And in South Africa, Saboni means I see you. And the purpose of the program is to create space for young people to see and be seen. This shy young boy who keeps to himself most of the time was able to be seen through creative writing and opportunities to paint, and was able to use his voice to talk about the need for gender equality in schools. And he also made friends. He blossomed, and he was very excited at the end of the program and has really come out of his shell. So now he's speaking more, and now he is a strong advocate for women's rights and gender equalities in his community. I want to tell you about Penny, a white woman pastor in Ashland City who was intentional about coming to our book studies on race and reconciliation and being in community with women from different races, congregations, and having the conversations that needed to be had to help strengthen the relationships of people of all color in her community, so much so that she continues to read, grow, and share with her congregation. These book studies also included times where men and women from all races, not only clergy and not all Christian, came together to study and learn from each other. It helped to create spaces where individuals and groups engaged each other to achieve a more just world. And then there's Cam, a racial justice fellow in our Behind the Walls Restorative Justice Fellowship program, where we co-created with our community partner, THEI. This program helped him to go into the prisons and do the work to help incarcerated individuals and to discern the justice concerns and the faith issues with incarceration, which allowed him to be a better advocate for the men behind the walls. These men who were gaining their education while incarcerated couldn't do the work unless they had the access to the computer lab in the facilities. But anything can happen in the facility. For those of you who are working in those incarcerated prisons and in those facilities, anything can happen at a moment's notice that could interrupt their access to learning at no fault of their own. So through the trainings that were including readings about the role of prisons in society, prison abolitionists, and the theological sense of what does it mean to give up on someone that was created by this fellowship program here at Scarritt, Cam continued to advocate for those men. He understood the lack of access to computers and resources, the way that they were being treated, and how the facilities used restricting learning as a tool of punishment. And that was a justice issue for him. So this fellowship program enables him to continue to do justice work and integrate social justice and the work of ministry that he does already as an ordained faith leader. So this year, we are celebrating 100 years at Scarritt of Scarritt College of Christian workers when it came to Nashville, Tennessee. And the vision that the founder, Bell Harris Bennett, is continuing on a larger scale. We're celebrating a century of vision, building a lasting legacy. And to that end, we are still here doing the work of racial and social justice, women's empowerment, transformative education, and spiritual formation. This work at this sacred place has brought people together through programs and events all across the globe. Be a co-creator with us. As you give, we give back, and that's what was shared in those stories. So now, here are my 3 asks. Do you have an ink pen? Yes? No? Okay, pull it out. Do you have your phone? Yes? All y'all got a phone now. Pull it on out. So pull out that ink pen and pull out that phone. Will you be a co-creator of justice with us and help build a lasting legacy? Yes? No? That's not a rhetorical question. Will you be a co-creator with Scarritt Bennett Center of all the things that you've heard tonight and help us to continue this lasting legacy? Thank you. So now, you all have received a donation envelope. If you have not, please raise your hand and our lovely volunteers from Tennessee State will bring one to you. So please take that donation envelope and that ink pen that you took out, write your check to Scarritt Bennett Center to support the various programs that were just described that we do every single day. Also, we made it very easy. On the back of your program is a QR code. So for the new schoolers, because I'm an old schooler, I still have a checkbook. But for the new schoolers, take that phone that I asked you that everybody has and go ahead and scan that QR code and leave that tax-deductible donation to Scarritt Bennett Center. So see, that wasn't hard, was it? So again, thank you for joining us and continuing the work that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about in this very chapel again 67 years ago, and now his daughter, the Reverend Dr. Bernice King, spoke about tonight. Thank you for your donations and your support of Scarritt Bennett Center. Thank you. At this time, for closing remarks, I will ask Dr. Ricardo Guthrie, Fisk University, John Lewis Center of Social Justice to come, and then followed by Reverend Sondrea Tolbert, Executive Director of Scarritt Bennett Center. Thank you.
Inspiring and inspired. I'm Ricardo Guthrie, and I've been volunteered to speak on behalf of my colleagues from Fisk and from Belmont, who are in the audience now. Dr. Sid Brown over here, Dr. Roland Datis over there, Joyce Searcy on this side, and if there are any other faculty, let us be known, but your students are here as well. Thank you so much. So, the Fisk Belmont Social Justice Collaborative, we had this brainchild of Joyce Searcy and Susan West. Joyce is a Fiskite and an AKA soror. So she's always thinking ahead, around the corner and around the block. And she got with Fisk's 2 years ago, I believe, to start a 5-year project funded through the Rector Family Foundation. And they're generous to say, bet you can't do this. Bet you can do this, rather. Can you get that rich, culturally rich HBCU and that rich, financially rich PWI together? Can you do that? Well, this is our 2nd year. Last year we had Reverend Bernard Lafayette Jr. speak. We had activities for our students. They want to be agents of change. They already are champions of hope. And we believe that this boldly going project can help benefit this generation. We believe in the generation, not to come, the one that's right here, right now. And how does it work? Fellowship activities, getting them together in the same room, just to have the energy of Dr. Sib or Dr. Datis and several others. They learn from that. The fellowship activities include going to new museums, going to the sacred grounds that exist here and at Fisk, and at Belmont, and beyond, because we do believe being on hallowed ground transforms you. We have a social justice leadership training and action activities in Nashville and Middle Tennessee. This is the site for social transformation, y'all. And the second part, borrowing from Reverend Benjamin Mays, it remains for each generation to find their own purpose, uncover their own purpose, regardless of what we say as elders. It's still on them, and to strive to fulfill it. We'll be standing by, we'll be the foundation, we'll be ready to make that intergenerational movement that we revere, that we've been inspired by, Reverend Bernice, that we've been inspired by, Reverend Tolbert. It's not a career, it's a calling. You've heard this many, many times. So whenever you think about, is there hope? Yes, this generation's already got it. They're just waiting us to get out of the way. We're not gonna get out of the way, we're gonna help you. And this event tonight is representative of that. That's what it means to have social justice as a collaborative, as a coalition. Growing pains, yes, but this is how it happens. Do the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to all that have indeed braved the weather to be out with us today. We are so grateful for your presence, whether you are in the building at the historic Wightman Chapel, where Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke here 67 years ago, or whether you are indeed watching with us online. We say thank you, and we thank you for your donations. Thank you again, Fisk, Belmont Social Justice Collaborative, for partnering with us. Thank you, the Tennessee Tribune, Ms. Rosetta Perry. Thank you so much for being our media sponsor and getting the word out. Thank you so much, Ms. Perry. Ms. Perry is watching, so thank you, Ms. Perry. Thank you, Dr. Baldwin, for gracing us with your presence today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Harris, President of American Baptist College. I see Dr. Harris somewhere in the building. Yes, social love of Dr. Harris. Fisk, we're going to be, Dr. Harris and I, the American Baptist College, as well as Vanderbilt University Divinity School and Africa University, along with Scarritt Bennett Center, will partner, or have partnered with a different collaborative, if you will. We are partnering for a transformative global leadership conference that will be held right here in September as a part of Scarritt's 100 celebration, as well as American Baptist 100 celebration. So yes, so who says that we don't get together? So we will most certainly come together to do this as a collaborative all together. Again, thank you all. We will not be remiss. We have reception and book signing with Dr. King over in the Bennett social rooms. Please, as we dismiss from here and move over there, we will receive Dr. King there, as well as there was books to sign, as well as reception over there. But I dare not leave. I see, Judge-elect Stephanie Williams. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, Judge-elect Stephanie Williams. Are there any other state officials in the house? I know it's council. I can't see all the way in the back. Is that Council Boyd? Who else is in the back? Charlene, I saw Charlene somewhere. There she is. Senator Charlene Oliver is in the house. Anybody else? Am I missing anyone else? The Tennessee State University Women's Center hostesses, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Thank you, C.N. Wilson. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Ms. C.N., for allowing them to come. Dr. Glover was supposed to be in the house, but I think the weather kind of got to her maybe. But again, thank you. From the Metro Council, they are meeting right now, but they sent a proclamation, Dr. King. The proclamation recognizing Reverend Dr. Bernice King Whereas Scarritt Bennett Center, originally established in 1892 in Kansas City, Missouri, as Scarritt Bible Training School for Women Missionaries, is celebrating in 2024 its 100th anniversary of moving the college to Nashville, guided by core principles of radical hospitality, racial equity, prophetic justice, women's empowerment, transformative education, spiritual enrichment, and sacred rituals. It continues to foster inclusive spaces for individuals and groups striving towards a more just world. And whereas Racial Justice Ministries, a program of Scarritt Bennett Center, serves as a convener, catalyst, collaborator, educator, and storyteller, fostering challenging conversations to address racism and pursue a more just world. And whereas on April 25th, 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech entitled "The Role of the Church in Facing the Nation's Chief Moral Dilemma" at historic Wightman Chapel, addressing the urgent need for churches to confront racial segregation. And whereas Dr. Bernice King, CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, continues to advance her parents' legacy through initiatives such as the beloved Community Leadership Academy, the NV 365 Education and Training, and the beloved Community Talks. And whereas Dr. King has impacted over 500,000 individuals globally and spearheaded initiatives like the Let Freedom Ring event, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. And whereas Dr. King's contributions have been recognized with awards such as the Phoenix Award from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and the Life Achievement Award for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion from Atlanta Business Chronicle. And whereas Dr. King's dedication extends to her involvement in organizations like the State Bar of Georgia, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and the National Black Bank Foundation. And whereas Dr. King is committed to advancing her parents' teachings and creating the beloved community with Nonviolence 365 as the pathway. And now therefore, we, the undersigned council members of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, do hereby recognize and honor Dr. Bernice A. King for her tireless dedication to the social change and justice. Signed April the 2nd, 2024, Vice Mayor Brenda, Councilperson Brenda Gadd, Council Tom Cash, Joyce Stiles, Bob Nash, Jenny Welch, Jordan Huffman, Zolfat Sarar, Quinn Evans Siegel, Aaron Evans, Jennifer Frensley Webb, Kantazi Coombs, and Jacob Coupin, members of the Council of Metropolitan Government on this day. We thank you all for your attention and for your attendance on today, and we hope that we have inspired you to be co-creators of justice for a more beloved community. Please be blessed and come join us in the Bennett social rooms as we most certainly welcome Dr. Bernice King. Have a blessed night.